This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're in activity-based costing, and we started on this last time. We got to allocate the manufacturing overhead for two or more products. Our example will just be two products. So we're going through two products, but you could have a number of products. And the assumption is that if you have these products and you got a common cost, then we got to come up with a way to allocate that overhead. So in the simple example, we have product A has direct material 4 and 5, and the production quantity is 100,000. Product B has direct materials of 3 and 2, and the production quantity is 50,000, and the total overhead is 50,000. So we're making 100,000 of product A, we're making 50,000 of product B, and the total manufacturing overhead is 50,000. So we come up with an activity rate. So you got this formula, and we're only using labor hours. You can use more than one way, but we'll just focus on labor hours, where our estimated cost is 50,000. And we think that the labor hours are going to be 60,000 for A and 60,000 for B. We simply add these labor hours together, get 100,000. We divide in column 5, column 1 estimated cost by the total hours, and we get an activity rate of 0.5. And this is similar to coming up with how we would cost if we were doing inventory and we're doing weighted average. So we're getting a weight, and that weight, happily and luckily for some people, becomes the activity rate. So I don't have to do any special calculating for the activity rate. Are there any questions on the top part of this chart, A, where we're coming up with this activity rate, where if you could have 10 products, you'd add up all the hours, and whatever is the total of the hours for all the products is divided into the dollar cost. These are hours, these are costs, to come up with an activity rate. Any question? Okay, so once we do that, then we bring down the labor hours for each product. So product A has 60 hours, 60,000 hours. Product B has 40. Then we bring down this activity rate, 0.5, 0.5, and we allocate the overhead. All we do is multiply that 0.5 times the labor hours in 1, so we're getting 30,000. We multiply 0.5 times the labor hours in B, we're getting 20,000, adding up to 50,000. So we have, based on this activity rate, a weighted average rate, we've allocated 30,000 of the overhead to A, 20,000 to B, and so our total overhead is now 50,000. Any questions? We next bring in our quantities, 100,000 and 50,000, and we divide those quantities into that overhead that was allocated to get the unit overhead cost. So we're doing the unit overhead cost a little differently, 0.3 and 0.4. Now we talked about last time that you can always divide the quantity into the allocated overhead, into the total overhead to get that unit cost. But because I had to get you all to understand POR, I had you do it a roundabout way. But if I didn't do that, then you would never focus on POR. So we had to get that focus. But as we come with these joint products, you simply taking the quantity that you're producing and dividing that into the overhead that was allocated. So the unit overhead is 0.3 for unit overhead cost and 0.4. That is, you got $30,000 in overhead for product A. You're making 100,000, so that's 0.3 is the unit cost. That is, each unit is getting 30 cents worth of overhead, 40 cents for product B. And our selling price multiples are 2 and 3. So now we got the unit overhead costs. Let's go back up here. Direct materials and labor 4 and 5 for A, 3 and 2 for B. So now we got to go back and come up with the unit cost for product A and product B. So now we're just coming up with the unit cost. Direct materials, 4 for A, 3 for B. Direct labor, 5 and 2. The manufacturing overhead, 30 cents and 40 cents. So what this process did in these two steps here was to come up with that unit overhead cost, which we estimated. We added the cost together. We did get a total unit cost of 9 and 540. We apply our selling price multiples, and the POR is going to be 50 cents each time. So to a certain extent, it's simpler. To a certain extent, it's simpler when we do it this way. But to get you a sense of that POR and how it's used, I had you calculate it in a roundabout way. But we haven't said anything special or difficult here. We had two products, A and B. They had labor and direct material costs given. We had these quantities that we're making, and we had this one overhead, and we got to get that overhead allocated between product A and product B. And it sort of gave you the labor hours, in this case.
Professor, is there a template that you've given us, or is it the same that we've been using? Is it kind of...
The problem has the basic word template.
Okay, the one that you gave us already?
That's the word template. And so you all should eventually convert it to Excel, but I want to go through it in Word and get a basic explanation. Sometimes all the lines and everything causes problems. So we're going to do this step by step. So let's go to our problem. And let me go through everything that's in here first, then we'll come back to it. We're using that basic demonstration problem from yesterday where we're making principles and a tax book. We're making a principles and a tax book.
Professor, y'all met yesterday?
So what?
We were supposed to meet yesterday?
I meant with Tuesday.
Friday. Oh, okay.
Tuesday. Okay, so we have this basic problem of the principles and the tax. So it's two books. So you got ink and paper, labor rate, labor production, the labor hours, the POR. And so based on, okay, so these are all the assumptions here. And the key thing is, I gave you the labor hours before, you got to calculate the total labor hours. So that's one thing. And based on the information, you'll be able to do that. So that's why we were doing the POR before. Okay. Then you go through the table. The goal is the same thing, to come up with the unit cost, selling price, and POR. That is still the goal, to come up with the unit cost, selling price, and POR. So we got to use this chart to come up with our activity rate. Sometimes we use more than one item, but we're only using one, so you don't have to worry about machine hours at this point. So it's just labor hours. So we're going to go through that similar process to come, then come up with the. So once we get the overhead rate, we get in the unit overhead cost. Once we get the unit overhead cost, we get in the total cost, selling price, sales, and the POR. Then we have the assumptions. With the assumptions, we have some items that are done at the company level, purchasing the ink and everything. Then we'll have separate work in process accounts for principals and tax. And so what we have to do is to make journal entries, general journal entries for buying the ink and the paper. And we don't separate that out unless it's a very large company. The manufacturing overhead and the over and under applied is in this journal entry. It's in the company books. Then in principals, we've got to make those same entries. This is a work in process account, so we transfer in the ink, transfer in the paper, we transfer in the cash, we estimate the overhead using POR, then we do a transfer to finished goods, then we do the sale. Then we got to do the same thing with the tax book. So I'm just giving you, we're going to work it step by step, but I'm showing you what's all here. We have a T account. The T accounts that we work with raw materials, we have two work in process T accounts, one for principals, one for tax. We have two finished goods accounts, one for principals, one for tax. We'll just use one cost of goods sold, and we only have one MOH account, so we only have one manufacturing overhead account. So that's how the T accounts look. And once you make a journal entry, you got to post it to the T accounts. Then you got to do a cost of goods manufacturer statement, and all you do, you pull out of each of those T accounts the information. So we were pulling it out for one book. Now you're pulling it out for principals and tax. Homework, you might be pulling it out for 4 books. But everybody's got 4 or 5 on the team. Then the cost of goods sold and gross margin. So we're going to calculate sales, do a cost of goods sold for each item, and then get the gross margin. So that's all. So we're just going from sales now to gross margin. We aren't doing the operating expenses or anything else. So that's what we're required to do, just to get to the gross margin if we're selling more than one book. Okay, so let's see if we can get this digested down. But what will eventually be happening is when you do your homework, everybody on the team got a book to do. So if everybody does a book, this won't be much. So let's go back to our assumptions. The principal's book take 2 ink cartridges and 1 ream of paper. The tax book takes 4 ink cartridges and 2 reams of paper. So that's our basic there. Our direct labor, $25 an hour for principals and $25 an hour for tax. We can make 5 books in an hour with principals, 2 in an hour with tax. So we calculate the labor hours. If it's 5 per hour and we got to make 5,000, then it's going, it'll take us 1,000 hours. So we just kind of get that calculated. And if we're making, 1,000 principles books, and we can make 2 an hour, then those are the hours. So your job now is to come in here and get the unit overhead costs. Then you're going to go to this chart to come up. So you're going to go to this chart to, first of all, get an activity rate just using labor hours. Then you're going to compute the unit overhead costs. Then you're going to compute the unit cost and selling price for the principal's book and the tax book. So that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You got to pull in the appropriate information. And as I told you, it's always the unit cost, selling price, and the POR. Don't worry about the total sales here. Don't worry about that. Are there any questions? Okay, so begin the work to start on this table. What's going to go right here on the table? What number is going here?
1,000.
75,000.
Yeah, 75,000 might be a good, better number. Thank you, Ms. Darian. And what's going here?
1,000.
1,000. All right, you all finish it up and get me an activity rate. So we got you started. Go finish it up and calculate the activity rate.
$50.
Okay, so the principal is 1,000 hours when we calculated them, and the tax is 500 hours. So we add them together and we get 1,500. And you simply going to divide what? 75 by 1,500. How much do we get?
50.
All right. I'll take your word for it. 50.
Face value. Good.
So what?
The face value figures it's good.
Are there any questions from anybody on how we got 50? Are there questions from anybody on how we got 50?
Yes. Is that the POR?
That's the POR and the activity rate. So some people should be shouting now.
So do we have to calculate that, or we just look at the chart, just put it there?
We just calculated it, Mendez. We put 75,000 in for the overhead. We put 1,000 hours for principals, and we put 500 for tax. We added those together and we got 1,500. We divided 75,000 by 1,500 and we got 50.
Okay.
So just a very simple calculation. And of course, if you got 4 books, you can see you could simply put this in Excel and have a formula to calculate this for you. So I'll leave that to you, but you can do it Word or you can do it in Excel. Anybody else on getting this 50? Because you will see this on your next quiz. You'll see, you'll have this information. You'll have to calculate the activity rates. So speak now, forever hold your peace. Now, go through now and calculate the unit overhead cost. So your goal is to get this unit overhead cost calculated. Begin work. You all were supposed to have this problem printed out at least. So begin the work and come up with the unit overhead cost. What's going to be right here in labor hours principles? Mendez, what you got right here on your paper, Mendez?
Nothing. I'm trying to look at it.
Parker, what you got?
1,000.
1,000. All you have to do is put 1,000 here. What's on the second line, Parker?
You mean number 2 underneath it or over a text? Oh, underneath.
We gotta let them do something, Parker. So what's on line 2?
50.
Principal, where did the 50 come from? At activity rate. So how much of the overhead are we gonna allocate to the principal's book?
50,000.
50,000. We just multiply 50 times 1,000. We get 50,000. And eventually we know that the total overhead needs to be 75,000. So we aren't worried about the machine hours or whatever. So we can go down here to 7. And so our total cost is 50,000. I just have a template, but in general, you aren't gonna have to worry about the machine hours unless I decide to give it to team A. But anyway, and our production goal was what?
5,000.
Supposed to be making 5,000. So what's our unit overhead cost going to be for the principal's book?
55.
Yeah.
55. Plus 5.
How much, Taylor?
Plus
I got 10.
Yeah, 10. I don't know what they're doing, Taylor. All you do is about 50,000 by 5,000. 50 by 5, you get 10. Y'all sure trying to make this hard. Does everybody see every number under principles? $1,000 worth of hours. We went back up here and got these hours. Or you can get them from right here in that chart above it. 50, that's the activity rate. We multiply 1 times 2 to get the amount of the overhead that's coming to the principal's book. So our total cost is 50. Then we go back up there to our production goal. Remember, we were making 5,000. We divide 50 by 5 and we get 10 for the unit overhead rate. Any questions on any of this? All right, see if y'all can handle the tax book now. Handle the tax book. Do we have a unit overhead cost for this tax book yet?
Yes,
So how much is
25. That's what I got.
Same.
So everybody got 25? The hours we just bring down, 500. Same activity rate, 50. And so 50 times 500 is 25,000. And you do your little check here. Your total overhead has to be 75. So we make that check. We aren't using machine hours, 25,000. Our production goal was what?
1,000.
1,000.
1,000. And so 25 is unit overhead cost. Now, how hard is that to do?
Not hard.
Not hard.
Good,
Very self-explanatory.
pretty much. Because I've got a table out for you. All right, so y'all can now compute the unit cost, selling price, and the POR. I'll take these total sales out. So you've been doing this all along. We want the total unit cost, selling price, and POR. So let's start on the principles book. If we go all the way back up at the top, you had two ink cartridges at 10, 20, one
Would
read
that be
20. So how much would it be?
would it be 40?
Yep, raw materials 40. For the principles book, raw materials are 40. What's our direct labor gonna be?
It's gonna be 10, 15.
Spend the $25 an hour, they can make 5 an
Five.
hour. So that's 5.
Manufacturing
That's our
overhead.
manufacturing overhead on the unit base. What's the
50?
manufacturing? Mendez, what's the manufacturing overhead?
50? Or is it, I don't know, 75?
That's
10.
10, right? That's right. It says 10 right
Oh,
there.
10. Okay. Okay,
Just
I
got
see. Okay, I'm trying to get it.
so our total unit cost then is what? 55.
55
What's our selling price multiple?
is 3, 5, like, yeah, 3,
Is it one? Wait, never mind.
3.
What?
165.
Yeah,
Yeah, is it
165.
165. What's our POR?
What
50.
is it?
Mendez is hesitating on us. What you say, Rodney?
It's 50.
It's 50.
That is the activity rate. We said the activity rate was the POR.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe just,
You get a chance for a reprieve that Mendez. Do the tax book. Everybody else, do the tax book. So what's the total unit cost for the tax book?
117.50.
Take your word for it. If you say it's 117.50. I'm taking your word for it. So what's our selling price?
587.5.
87.5. And what's our POR, Mendez?
50, sorry.
Was everybody see how we got 117.50? Anybody don't see how we got 117.50? But go through and try to figure it out and calculate out. Because if you just simply are looking, you know what the answer is. Go back and make sure you can pull those in, just like we did for the principal book. So we're doing the same thing. So you can see it's still computing the unit cost and the selling price. This is why we spent that first week on this. We'll continue to see it. Now, it's time to make journal entries. We got to purchase the ink cartridges for both books. That was calculated. So we needed 14,000 cartridges and 7,000 reams of paper. Then we got to transfer ink cartridges to work in process, paper to work in process, pay for the actual labor hours, kept it the same, apply the POR at the calculated rate. We're assuming that all the books are finished and transferred to completed goods, so you don't have to worry about how much you transfer. You're transferring all the costs. But you're only selling 4,000 principal book and 750 of the tax books. Then this is our actual manufacturing overhead paid in cash and record the over or under. So now we have to make journal entries and posting. And as we look at our journal now, we have a company journal where we're buying our raw materials and recording our overhead and over and under. We do that at the company level. Then principal's gonna have its set of books because it has to keep track of all this separate from tax. We're gonna post to T accounts as is appropriate, and then come back and get our statements prepared. So notice once again, journal entries already made. You already got the accounts. All you got to do is put dollars in. So let's start with buying the raw materials. You purchase 14,000 ink cartridges and you purchase 7,000 reams of paper. You purchase 14,000 ink cartridges and 7,000 reams of paper. You're buying that for both books. So when we look up here, the ink cartridges cost what? $10 each. And the paper costs $20 a ream.
Well, it say two of them cost $10, right?
No, it says it took two at 10 each.
Okay.
It took two at 10 each. So when we get ready to make this journal entry to purchase the ink, we simply are going to do what? Take 14,000 and multiply by what?
About 20?
And they cost $10 each. You just need two of them.
Oh, I see what you said. Thanks.
So the raw materials ink is how much? What's 14 times 10 most times?
140,000.
It's 40,000.
140,000 times 10.
Then we said that we were going to buy 7,000 reams of paper. The paper costs what? $20 each. So to do our calculation, we're gonna have what? 7,000 times 20. So the paper is gonna be what?
140,000.
140 also. And we're running, put that in our accounts, 140,000 for the ink and 140,000 for the paper. So we're just sort of posting the manufacturing accounts. Now we got to go and why don't we work with the principal's book and then together, then I'll let you work with the tax book by yourself. We're transferring, the first thing we're gonna do, it says transfer 10,000 ink cartridges to work in process. So we're just gonna do the principal's line, then you come back and do the tax line. So if we transfer 10,000 of the ink cartridges to work in process, we now are in the work in process for the principal's book. We transferred 10,000 ink cartridges. Times 10. So what's our amount gonna be?
100,000.
100,000. Then next it says we transferred in how many reams of paper? 5,000 for the principal's book. So the principal's has this 5,000 times 20. And so that becomes what, 100,000 again. Next, we're gonna record the labor. And it says that what? We have 1,000 labor hours. How much are we paying the laborers? $25 an hour. So they worked 1,000 hours. We paying them $25 an hour. So we're simply gonna have what? 1,000 times 25. So how much is that gonna be?
25,000.
25. Then we're gonna apply the overhead. So when we apply that overhead, we use the same 1,000 times what? We're gonna multiply the 1,000 by short memories.
50.
You didn't say it loud enough.
50.
I got multiplied by 50 to POR. Remember your POR was 50. So you take the labor hours, 1,000 multiplied by 50, and you got 50,000. And the next thing we're gonna do is to put all of these costs into the work in process account for principals. 100, 100, 25, and 50. So we have 100,000. And we'd have credited the ink for it. So we're using all of that. Then we had, so this is the ink, and the next 100,000 is gonna be for the paper. And we'll credit the papers since we're using all of it. Well, all of it relates to paper. And then we're gonna bring in what? The 25 and the 50,000. Okay. And so we're making how many books? It was 5,000, correct? And what's our total cost in this account?
$275,000.
275. So the total cost in the account at this point is 275. So next it says what? Let's do one other thing quickly. Since we had overhead of 50,000, we're gonna go ahead and put that 50,000 over here as a credit because we estimated. So remember, we debit manufacturing overhead, so we debit work in process for the estimated overhead, and we're gonna put that over here as a credit. Okay, the next journal entry, it says we completed everything. So it says we completed, all the books were finished and transferred to finished good. So we completed all 5,000. So we started 5,000, we finished 5,000. So we're gonna be taking 5,000 from the work in process and now putting it down here in finished goods. So how much is that journal entry gonna be? What's the dollar amount of this journal entry gonna be?
Same thing, 275.
275,000. So everything in the account is transferred out because we finished everything. So I didn't want you to have to worry about that. How much is transferred out? The key thing is getting it transferred out. And what's the unit cost of these books going to be?
$55.
Take your word for it, 55. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make the sale. And then we'll also need a cost of goods sold. Okay, so the 275, we transferred that to finished goods. And we only selling how many? 4,000, right? Okay. What's our selling price gonna be? Selling 4,000, what we're gonna sell them for?
165.
I will assume that's what we calculated up there. So what's 4,000 times 165?
66. What is it? 600,000, 66? I don't know how to say that. 666 is 660,000.
660,000. I got you, man.
No, I didn't get that. I got 660,000.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Same thing.
Okay. So now we have 66 souls that we can put in here as a sale. What's our cost of goods sold gonna be? $4,000 times what?
Is it times the unit cost?
Unit cost. Does the unit cost $55?
Correct.
So we simply are gonna multiply the 4,000 times 55. And how much do we get?
220,000.
So we got 220,000. And now we're gonna post that. So 220 is coming out of finished goods and going in the cost of goods sold. So it's just sort of using one sales account and one cost of goods sold account. Are there any questions about any of those journal entries and what we did? We made the journal entries and posted them. We transferred in the ink and the paper. We paid the workers. We applied the manufacturing overhead. We transferred all of those costs to finished goods. We sold 4,000 at that sales price that we calculate, 165. And we did the costs and took them out. So these are the same journal entries we were working with before, but we got them for principals. Now we got to turn around and do them for 2 items. So are you all ready to do your tax book? Well, ready or not, get to work. So what I did for principals, I want you all to do that for tax. Make the journal entries and post them. You have 15 minutes. That's a long time, but you have 15 minutes to get that done. Is that time enough? Yeah. 2 minutes of journal entry. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, you got a minute to spare. Are there any questions on any of these journal entries by anyone?
I just want to know where the Journal entries for the taxes are. Is it the same?
Thing, there they
Just
are. You're supposed to have your sheet in there. You're supposed to have this printed
no,
out.
no. I have my sheet. I just trying to like.
The very same thing.
Is it the same one? Oh, I see it. Okay, never mind. I see it. I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Make sure
I
you
got
post them. Yes.
I got a question from earlier. Like, for the taxes, I added it up, but I got 95. How you get 117?
Where you at?
Like, I get the journal entries, all that, but I'm just trying to like clear up like how you get 117 from like earlier.
Where's this 117 at?
Right there. Cause I added it all up. I got 95. So how you get
Oh,
117?
all right, so we got the principles book. Let's look at tax then. Good question. It took 4 ink cartridges at 10 each, 40. 2 reams of paper at 20 each, 40. Some of the raw materials were 80. Tax book is much bigger, so it takes more raw materials. Labor rate was 25. They could make 2 per hour. So that made the labor $12.50. We were paying them $25. They could make 2 per hour. And where did the manufacturing overhead costs come from? Stargy, where did that come? How much is that?
That's the 250, ain't it?
No, comes right from this right there above it, $25.
All right, never mind. Yeah, I know I fucked up it. Oh, my fault.
Be careful. We take, okay. So we cleared up the cost of the tax book now. So what I want you all to do is to make those same entries and post them, because that was a big problem last time. You all wouldn't post them. Same accounts. Got your accounts here. Put some dollars in there and post them. Okay, do we have those journal entries made and posted? I can't
Yes,
hear
sir.
you. You got them made? All right, Mendez, so tell us how much ink you work with.
40,000.
So we debit ink 40,000. Work in process ink and credited 40,000. And what about for the paper?
40,000.
Let's go ahead and post those right quick. So we're posting the remainder of the 40,000 of the ink and the paper. And for the tax book, we're putting in 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much labor did we pay?
12,500.
Nobody say anything, so I assume that's correct. 12,500. We just multiply the hours. How many hours was it? $500 hours. What about this applied manufacturing overhead?
I got 117,500.
One,
Oh
one,
wait, wrong one. I'm sorry. That's 25,000. I'm sorry. That's the wrong one.
So we would have gotten it the same way, multiplying by the hours and quantities by these same ones here, 10, 20, 25, and 50. So that's 12, 5, and 2,500. 25,000, 12, 500, and 25,000. And this was for 1,000 books. So what's our total cost of these books?
117,500.
Okay. 1,750.
That's it.
So we're going to transfer all the cost out. So 117,500 debited to finished goods, and 117,500 credited to work in process. So we make the books, and then we're going to transfer out all of the costs. So we would have had here this credit of 275 for the principals, when we transfer it out of here. We're going to credit it for 117,500, and we're going to debit finished goods for 117,500. So this is 1,000 books. So what's the unit cost per book going to be?
117.5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now how many of them do we sell?
$750.
We sold
Time.
$750 each time.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the selling price of the tax book?
$587.50.
So what's our total sales?
I got 44. I mean, sorry.
440,625.
Mm-hmm.
140, 625.
440.
Is that right?
440.
No, just 440.
140 even?
No, sir.
It's
Four.
440,000.
440.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still 625?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 440. So let's put that in. 440, 625. And then how much of the cost we transferring out? We're selling what, 700?
750.
750. And so what's that cost gonna be?
88,125.
88,125?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so $88, 125. Now we got another 88,125 in cost of goods sold. And our manufacturing overhead, we put in 25,000 for the tax book. So we need another 25,000 in here. So you can see that those entries, they repeat. The accounts are the same. You're just using the principal's number here, the tax numbers here. Now we got to record the actual manufacturing overhead, and it says it was 80,000, correct? So we're just gonna come in here and debit manufacturing overhead for 80,000, credit cash for 80,000. So when we post that to the manufacturing overhead account, it's got 80,000 that we're putting in. We got 75, so what do we got to do? The account has to go to zero. So are you gonna debit it or credit it?
Credit.
We're gonna credit it for 5,000. And put that 5,000 in cost of goods sold. So let's make that entry right quick. Debit COGS for 5,000 and credit MOH. So those are all the entries we need. So you can see at the company level, they buy the raw materials and take care of the overhead. Then we have the principal's level, their work in process account, tax. For however many products you have a separate work in process account for each one. Now, how much money is left in principals goods, finished goods for principals? Is that about 45,000?
I got 55,000.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. 55, comma 00. So we've got 55,000 left in this account. And how much we got left in finished goods for tax? That's 117 minus 88,125. How much is left?
29,375.
How much?
I got 29,375.
Okay, 29, comma 375. Okay. So now we have our T accounts done. Now we're ready to do our statements. We're ready to do our statements. Are you all ready to do these statements?
Professor, are we gonna finish this next class, or you gonna do it right now?
What time we'll do it now. It won't take us long.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so to do cost of goods manufacturing, we simply gonna look at each work in process account and bring the numbers down. So direct materials for the principal's book. Top two numbers, 200,000. So all we do is put 200,000 here.
You just add them.
Yep. And we're going to do the same thing with the tax book. It was 80,000. Now we had originally purchased how much? It was 280, correct? 140, 140. So the purchases were 280. We didn't have any in the inventory left. So we get the 280 here. Direct labor, we're simply going to bring those out in overhead. So 25 and 50, 12, 5, and 2,500. So the direct labor and overhead for the tax book $25,000 and $50,000. And if we look at the advanced book, it was what? 12,500 and 25,000. So we're just bringing those numbers in. And so our total manufacturing cost was what? We add these up. It's going to be 275. We didn't have anything left, so it totals out to be 275. And for the advanced book, it's 80, 12, 5, and 25,000. And so we said that was 117,500. $117,500. And so we just simply cross add 25 and 12, 5 is going to be what, 37,500. Fifth and 25 is what?
75,000.
This was also 117,500. So what was our total manufacturing cost? This is right here, 270.
I got 392,500.
Okay, this is 75. This is going to be 80,000. So this would be what, 197 here. Is that 197,500? Or is it more? 80, 12, 5, 25, and 117. That's got to be, what's
No,
our,
that's correct. That's the number.
okay, 197.5.
No, it's, let me see.
Okay, that's right, because this is
There was one that was what's in there.
197.
Was
So when you add these two together, what's our total manufacturing cost?
it's the one? It's 117 still 500 under that 25 for the total manufacturing cost.
117,500.
Yes, sir. It just looked different because you got 80, but the 40 plus 40,000 plus the rest.
So what's our total manufacturing cost? You add them this way or you can add them this way. What's our total cost?
300,900 92,500.
392,500.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see all we did was we put our total numbers in, but we pull out of each work in process account and just add it to get the cost of goods manufactured. And let's see if we can do a cost of goods sold right quick and we'll be done. So all we're going to do, remember to get cost of goods sold, we're going to bring down the cost of goods manufactured. We're going to bring down the 275 and we're going to bring down the 117,500. So we bring down those numbers to cost of goods manufactured. So the total cost of goods manufactured is 392,500.
Mm-hmm.
Now we need the ending finished goods. So the ending finished goods were 55 and 29,375. $29,375 and 50,000. So the unadjusted for principals is what, 225? And what's our unadjusted for the advanced book? You subtract out this from this, what do we get? What's 117,500 minus 29,375?
$88,125.
88,125. And so, what is,
Professor,
yes,
for principals, let's and then finished goods is 55,000.
is it 55,000?
Yes, sir.
So how much is left?
Let's see.
That'd be 220, wouldn't it?
Should be. Yes, sir. 220,000.
Okay, so when we add the 55 and the 29,375, how much do we get?
Oh, 88,125. Same numbers.
Okay, you've got to add, first of all, we're gonna add the ending inventories, 55 and 29,375. How much is that?
I got 84,375.
84,375. So what's our unadjusted cost of goods sold? 392.5 minus 84, or you can add it this way. So what's our,
308,125.
how much?
308,125.
Get your word for it. So 308,125. Then we had what? We had under applied, so, and the amount was what, 5,000, correct? So we're gonna add it. So our adjusted cost of goods sold is how much? 313,125.
Yes, sir. 303,125.
So you can see the work is done. So I expect you to be able to come out on one post, then the work in process to accounts will get the information for cost of goods manufactured. And then for the cost of goods sold, we'll get these. And notice that we adjust that cost of goods sold with on the total side. So we don't go back to each one, we adjust it on the total side. So let's see. In the primer on page 348, in the primer on page 348 is a joint product and activity-based costing in-class problem. It's on page 348 in the primer. That's what each team has to turn in next time.
Page 348.
On page 348, there's an in-class problem.
Okay.
We'll check the totals and then we'll go on to process
I'm gonna
cost.
post it, Mr. Towell.
Okay.
Are you gonna make a template of this?
No, you all are.
Mm.
I got your template. Okay, see, this is a template here.
Me,
Okay, okay.
This is the template. You just have to add for the additional 2 books. So you will have to expand this for the additional 2 books. And if you look at the problem, it's set up with the 4. So I'm going to let you expand it. But here in the book itself, it does show it with all 4 books. So team leader does the company part, then the other team members do 1 book each. It shouldn't take y'all that long. So of course you go through and everybody calculates the POR. Once you agree on the POR, then each team member has a book and they work on that book, starting with the overhead costs and the unit cost of that book. So once that happens, then each person works on a book, then you bring it together. The team leader brings it together. So I'm letting you all do it at home. I could have you do it in class on Tuesday, but I think if you have it at home over the weekend, it may work out a lot better. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
So we're doing the same thing, we just have several books, and I don't want to put a lot of time on it. I don't want to put a lot of time on it because it's just really procedural. You can see how fast we went through it, you know, a little over class period as you all, but I wanted you all to work some of it out. So I'm convinced you all can knock this out for next time. Kyle, how's your new group coming? Are you in the same group, aren't you? We'll see these other folks who are not here. Okay, 5:30 tomorrow for makeup for anybody who needs it, who's not at 30 points. 5:30 to 6:45. Any questions, anything for the good of the cause? Except y'all overworking me. Y'all making me work overtime today.
No.
Professor, I might be a little bit late tomorrow. Is that fine? Like, I'll probably be here at like 5:45 because I'll be getting off work.
Okay. Too much.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Professor.
Good evening, it's just extra, office hours. So I'll probably be on at 5:30 on Monday if anything comes up on that problem. But it's just really procedure. It's not anything different. Okay, everybody have a good weekend. I'll touch base for a few minutes at whatever time needed at 5:30 on Monday. Y'all have a good weekend. Don't get blown away tonight, so you might need to stay in.
Weekend, sir.
Okay, thank you. Have a good weekend.
All right,
All right,
y'all.
y'all.
Goodbye.